السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته شيخنا.
Amin. Abu Amir, how are you?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah, sir.
It has taken a long time for the platform to be opened. We were all waiting for you.
Yeah, sorry about that. We finished Salah.
Oh, okay. It's the same thing all over. We ended Salat here about 4:35, 4:36. I think Salatul Asr comes now about 4:15, 4:20 in most of the places.
No, Shaykhana.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, sir. Alhamdulillah.
We go on with this class on Halqatu Āishah.
No, Shaykhana.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. This class, Halqatu Āishah, as the name simply goes, it's a class, like we say, a halqa. The halqa is a learning circle, a place where people converge to learn, to exchange benefits regarding the knowledge of Islam. So it is called a halqa. The Messenger ﷺ used to have halaqat with his companions. He will sit in a gathering with them, and each of them will sit close by. And then he ﷺ will mention to them from the benefits that he seeks to mention to them. They were in such gathering when Jibreel ﷺ came to them. We remember that popular hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab. بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. That julus عند رسول الله, sitting with the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام, is the halqa with the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. So halaqat in the history of Islam has been the major way by which people who have benefits to provide, spread benefits with regards to the knowledge of the religion. So a halqa is a place where people converge to learn, and it has its basis right from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam up to the present day. If you go to the Prophet's Masjid alayhi salatu wasalam, you will see hilaq, places of gathering where scholars sit down and others sit down around them to make benefit from them. Likewise, there are a lot of hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, in other books of hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ would hear him talking about people sitting in hilaq or in halaqat, with either of the plurals for that word halqa that we may choose. So Halqatu Āishah is the halqa that has been named before our mother, Ummul Mu'mineen, Āishah radiyallahu anha, the most beloved human being to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu asked the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wa salam, Man ahabbu nasi ilayk? Man ahabbu nas ilayk? Who is the most beloved of the people, of human beings to you, O Messenger of Allah? And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, Āishah radiyallahu anha. The Prophet mentioned Āishah radiyallahu anha. So this halqa is named after the most beloved woman to the Prophet, and the most beloved persons to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Because Amru asked again, min al-rijal, how about from the males? And he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, Abuha, referring to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. So Āishah radiallahu anha has this halqa radiallahu anha named after her. This halqa, this convergence, which will be weekly, bi'idhnillah, would like this gathering to be weekly, 4:30 to 5:30, just 1 hour, and our attention will be about reading the Seerah of Āishah radiyallahu anha. The Seerah of Āishah simply means the biography of Āishah, or the bio of Āishah, or the life history of Āishah radiyallahu anha. Another question can be, why have we chosen to study about Āishah? Why have we chosen to study the life of Āishah radiyallahu anha? We have chosen to study the life of Āishah radiyallahu anha because these days the women more sincerely require to know how the women were during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. There has been no time when the women to require knowing about how women lived in the time of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, like our own times. And that is because a lot of civilizations, a lot of people outside Islam have shown the present day woman examples of how they want them to live their lives. The Christians, the non-Muslims, the Freemasons, various people from various orientations, they have shown a modern day woman an example, a model of how they desire that a woman looks like, how they desire that a woman thinks, what they desire that a woman should believe and take in a creed, what they believe that a woman should seek to become, and so on, how the woman should behave, what kind of religion the woman should adopt, how the woman should conduct her home, how the woman should bring up her children, what the woman should learn and become busy with. There are a lot of examples, a lot of models that have been presented to young girls these days. And that presentation would start from a very, very early age. Most of the women you find today, you find that if you bring together 100 women, over 90 of them would have been reading novels, Mills and Bones, reading newspaper articles, and things like that, that shape how they envisage life, how they think about life. So therefore, it is absolutely necessary to present the women with the model woman that Allah wants them to become like Āishah radiallahu anha. Just like the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah spoke about him in the Quran and said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَّنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَةَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ, you have in the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, uswatun hasanatun, the best exemplary to follow. If you want to follow an exemplary, just look at the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So we can say conveniently for the Muslim woman that following Āishah radiyallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Ummul Mu'mineen, Siddiqa bintu Siddiq radiyallahu anha, we are coming back to explain these alqab, these titles of our mother Āishah, one after the other, bi'idhnillah. So one way of explaining that verse, when Allah commanded the Muslims to take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the perfect model and example. The way for the women to do that especially is to look at the life of the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and be like her. When you seek to be like Āishah, you will also have been fulfilling that verse of the Quran. When you seek to be like Āishah radiyallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and the most beloved human being to the Prophet Muhammad, Abū Nāsir ila Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When you seek to be like her, you would have been fulfilling that verse when Allah said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. So in this, inshallah, we hope to look at the life of Āishah radiyallahu anha as a means of learning how to live our lives as Muslim women. Why are we studying the life of Āishah radiyallahu anha? We want to follow that verse, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ, the female version, so to speak, of how to view the life as a Muslim woman is by living, being like our mother Āishah radiyallahu anha, nurturing our children to be like her, because she was exemplarily nurtured by her father Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and her mother Ruman. We are coming back to all of these details. We want us to see how is it that a mother should nurture her child. How is it? What should you teach your child? Upon what should you build up the life of your child? You have to look at the life of Āishah radiyallahu anha. And you yourself as a Muslim woman, what are the things you should believe? What are the things you should look up to? How should you try to live your life? How do you relate with your husband in the time of ease and the times of difficulty? How do you become a friend of Allah? How do you contribute to the Ummah as a Muslim woman? What are the contributions you should make? You take all of these examples from the life of Āishah bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anha. The Prophet married her sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when she was 9 years old, and she lived with him for another 9 years. The Prophet married her when she was 9 years, meaning she came to his house when she was 9, and she lived with him for another 9 years, 18 years. And all she had learned within these 9 beautiful years of living with the Prophet of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, she taught it to the Ummah in 50 years. She died 50 years after the demise of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She was a teacher of Quran. She was a teacher of Lugha, Arabic grammar. She was a teacher of poetry. She was a master of fiqh. Men came to ask about jurisprudential matters from Āishah radiyallahu anha. She used to teach dreams. She used to teach the people dreams. She was in it all as far as knowledge and its various branches were concerned. So she spread the religion and its knowledge over a period of 50 years. How did she do that? What are the things that made it easy for her to be able to do that? Bismillah, we'll be reading all of these from this book, Siyar A'alām An-Nubala by Imām Adh-Dhahabi rahimahullah. So Siyar A'alām An-Nubala will be our reference point. And our hope is that inshallah we'll read this book word for word. Bismillah. So we should be ready. We should pick our pens. I suggest also that we should make printouts. I suggest also that we should make printouts of this book. The PDF forms have been sent to us. Let us, for the sake of Allah, make printouts so that we can make notes. We can write notes by our copies of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala as we read this book along, we'll be able to write notes, we'll be able to take down the meanings of very strange words and strange expressions that we may come across. We'll be reading this from the book of Imām Adh-Dhahabi, Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. Then we'd like to say a bit about this book and a bit about its author, Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, before we proceed with our reading. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, the well-known scholar of hadith. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, his kunya is Abu Abdullah, as we would have heard in the various lessons of Al-Adab al-Mufrad. You would hardly find a person of esteem and respect in Islam, except that he or she had a kunya. You would hardly find a person of esteem and respect in this ummah, except that that person had a kunya. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, his kunya is Abu Abdullah, and our mother, radiallahu anha, Āishah, that we will be reading about her, her own kunya was Abdullah. And that was because she came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and said to him that about every person has a kunya. So what kunya should I obtain? And the Prophet advised her, radiallahu anha, to take a kunya from the name of her sister's son, her nephew, Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Abdullah ibn Zubayr is the son of Asma'u bintu Abi Bakr as-Siddiq, who is the sister of Āishah, although from a different mother. So Asma'u and Āishah were from different mothers, but they were both from the children of Abu Bakr. So she took her kunya as Abdullah. So Imām Adh-Dhahabi, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, he has the kunya Abu Abdullah. As for his name is Muhammad. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, his name is Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Uthman. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, as he is popularly known, his kunya is Abu Abdullah. His name was Muhammad. His father's name was Ahmad. His grandfather's name was Uthman, rahimahumullah. These were very eminent people. His father, Ahmad ibn Uthman, was a known dealer in Al-Dhahab al-Matkuk. Al-Dhahab al-Matkuk refers to grains of gold. His father, Ahmad ibn Uthman, the father of Imām Adh-Dhahabi, he traded in fine grain gold that's in grains. That was how he became to be called Al-Dhahabi. The first person to be called Al-Dhahabi was who? The father of Imām Adh-Dhahabi. And that was why at that time, in the early times, Imām Adh-Dhahabi used to be referred to as what? Ibn Adh-Dhahabi. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, Muhammad, Abu Abdullah, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, he used to be referred to as Ibn Adh-Dhahabi. Why? Because his father, Ahmad ibn Uthman, was trading in fine-grained gold. He was trading in fine-grained gold. So his father, Ahmad, used to be referred to as Al-Dhahabi, while he himself used to be referred to as Ibn Al-Dhahabi. His father, Ahmad ibn Uthman, he was also known with Talabul Ilm. He was also a person who busied himself with seeking knowledge. He was known to have studied Sahih al-Bukhari from one of the sheikhs in his time, Miqdad al-Qaisi. Miqdad al-Qaisi was the teacher of who? Ahmad ibn Uthman, the father of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. He was also known to have made Hajj. وَكَانَ دَيِّنًا. He was also known to be a person of deen. The father of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, what is his name? Ahmad ibn Uthman. He was known to be a person of deen. يَقُومُ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. He was also known with Qiyamul Layl. Qiyamul Layl is from the symbols to know the people of righteousness. O women, for the sake of Allah, be sure that you pay attention to standing up in the middle of the night. You pray, you come close to Allah, you beg Allah for your husband, you also beg Allah for your children. If you want your husband to be successful, if you want your children to be successful, keep to standing in the middle of the night. The father of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, Kana Yaqumul Layl, was known with Qiyamul Layl. He has been described with two very brilliant traits now. The trait of learning from scholars. That was why he was able to study Sahih al-Bukhari from a learned person at that time. He was also known with good deen and sound late night ibadah. That is from the father side of Al-Imam al-Bukhari. He said his father Ahmad ibn Uthman used to be referred to as what? As Zahabi. And that made the people refer to Al-Imam al-Zahabi as what? Ibn al-Zahabi. Even though the ulama say while Al-Imam al-Zahabi grew up, he also learned to trade in fine grained gold, just like his father. And so he himself became to be called Az-Zahab. Why? He also was trading in fine grained gold like his father Ahmad. So Al-Imam Muhammad, Imam Adh-Dhahabi, became who? Ibn al-Zahabi became Az-Zahabi himself. So he is what? Az-Zahabi Ibn al-Zahabi. Imam al-Zahabi, he is what? Az-Zahabi Ibn Man, Ibn al-Zahabi. Az-Zahabi because he also was trading in fine grain golds. Ibn al-Zahabi because that was also the trade of his father. So but his name was what? Muhammad. And his father's name was what? Ahmad. His mother, the mother of Al-Imam Al-Zahabi, also came from a family of knowledge. And it happened that the members of the mother's family had a lot of influence in how Al-Imam Al-Zahabi grew up to become a great scholar. Why? They were people of knowledge. Al-Imam Al-Zahabi's father, Ahmad, married a woman from a family known with knowledge. They were known with knowledge. They were known with piety. And they were known with wealth. Imam Al-Zahabi's parents, from the mother side, they were known with what? Three things. Knowledge. They were also known with what? Piety. They also known with what? Wealth. So these three things positively influenced the growth of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. So he had aunts, uncles, and aunts who were scholars of the religion. Imam Adh-Dhahabi had uncles, maternal, and aunts, maternals, who were scholars of the religion, and they influenced how he grew up to become a scholar of Islam. They were very engaged in learning the Quran and teaching the Quran. So at a very, very early age, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, he had memorized the Quran and he had started learning the sciences of Al-Qira'at. Before he became 18 years old, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, had learned and perfected all the Qira'at. Before 18 years of age, Imam Adh-Dhahabi, Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Zahabi ibn al-Zahab, he had perfected all the Qira'at. And that was why one of the first works that he wrote was on Ilmul Qira'at. One of the first works that Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, he wrote, rahimahullah, was on the sciences of Al-Qira'at. He titled the book At-Talwihat fi Ilm Al-Qira'at. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, before 18, he had perfected all the various forms of reading the Quran. And he authored a book he referred to as what? At-Talwihat fi Ilm Al-Qira'at. He also has a book, Ma'rifatul Qurra al-Kibar, knowing the biography of Al-Qurra al-Kibar, the very eminent elderly ones amongst the scholars of Al-Qira'at. I have this book, and I have gone through it. Very big work by Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, Ma'rifatul Al-Qurra al-Kibar, by Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, because at the beginning of his life, he was a person who was busy with the sciences of what? Al-Qira'at. And before 18 years old, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi had mastered the sciences of Al-Qira'at. And at that time too, he had started learning from the scholars of Hadith. And that was why, as he was eminent as a scholar of Qira'at and Tafsir, he was also eminent as a scholar of Al-Hadith and what? Al-Tariq. Likewise, he also has works in the sciences of Al-Aqidah. Shaykh Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf, he wrote a PhD thesis in 1975. I mentioned this a lot. Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf, he had his PhD in 1975. This person is still alive till as I speak. At this moment, he's working on a book, Tariq al-Umam wal-Mamluk. Tariq al-Umam wal-Mamluk, by Al-Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tabari. Imam al-Tabari, the author of Tafsir al-Tabari. Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf, as he is popularly known. If a person obtained a doctoral degree in 1975, what is he today? Yet he still goes about. He's still been generally referred to as Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf, even though he has already obtained a professorial degree. He has a lot of lectures on the YouTube, very beneficial, about the science of Hadith and At-Tariq. At the present, he is working on the book I mentioned, Tariq al-Umam wal-Mamluk, by Al-Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tabari. The point here is, Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf wrote a book on the life of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. This book was published in 1975. He worked on the life of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi rahimahullah that we are talking about. This book occurs in about 485 pages. It's right in front of me. So I wouldn't know which part of the life of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi I would like to pick from. So I have tried to mention a bit about his background, his family, his father, and his mother. So I think it will be beneficial to mention what the scholars have said about Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. One of the students of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi was Al-Hafiz ibn Kathir. Al-Hafiz ibn Kathir, the author of Tafsir Ibn Kathir, was from amongst the students of Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi rahimahullah. Perhaps we read what Ibn Kathir rahimahullah said about his teacher, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. He said, rahimahullah, Ibn Kathir, Imad al-Din, the author of Tafsir, he was referring to Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. He said, Al-Shaykh al-Hafiz, Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, the author of Tafsir. He spoke about his teacher, Imam Adh-Dhahabi. He said, Al-Shaykh al-Hafiz al-Kabir. What did he call him? Al-Shaykh al-Hafiz al-Kabir. A Shaykh, a scholar, well-grounded scholar. Al-Hafiz, a well-grounded scholar in the sciences of Hadith and Islamic history. They are usually referred to as what? Hafaz. So he referred to him, he says, Al-Shaykh al-Hafiz al-Kabir, a big Hafiz. He's referring to Al-Dhahabi. He says, Mu'arrikh al-Islam. the great historian of Islam, the great scholar of the history of Islam. The first one is Tarikhul is 5 big volumes. It was published some years ago by big volumes. There is no one of the volumes that is left Tarikhul Islam. It is from the works of Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. So that's why he is referred to as what? Mu'arrikhul Islam, the great scholar of Islamic history. Was Shaykhul Muhaddithin, Shaykhul Muhaddithin, the Shaykh of the scholar of Hadith, the author of this book we like to read from, Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. If you are a big scholar, especially for all those who came after Adh-Dhahabi, any person in the science of Hadith, you have a Shaykh in Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. From the things that have been mentioned about Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar, we would all have been here who wrote the commentary of Sahih al-Bukhari in about 18 big volumes. There is hardly anyone who will speak about Sahih al-Bukhari without referring to Fath al-Bari by who? That when he drank Ma'u Zamzam, he was begging Allah to make him be like Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. So we have to understand the status of Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, in terms of knowledge. If Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, the great scholar of Hadith, will be drinking Ma'u Zamzam to be like Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, then we should understand what they mean, what Ibn Kathir means when he referred to Al-Dhahabi as Shaykhul Muhaddithin, the Shaykh of the scholars of Hadith. Likewise, his colleague and his Shaykh. At that time, someone would be your colleague, but he will still be a Shaykh. In the past, someone would be your colleague, he's your friend. You learned together from the same Shaykh. But because you recognize that even though you have learned from the same Shaykh, the two of you are not the same. Each person knows his limits. Just like Amr ibn Dinar and Al-Imam ibn Jurayj. Amr ibn Dinar learned from Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah. Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah, that student of Abdullah ibn Abbas. Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah, the Imam of Makkah. He had two students. One of them was who? Amr ibn Dinar. He had another student, Ibn Jurayj. Ibn Jurayj and Amr ibn Dinar were learning from Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah. So Ibn Jurayj spent over 17 years learning from Ata'u. And Amr ibn Dinar was also learning from Ata'u. So they have the same teacher, Ata'u. But after Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah passed away, Ibn Jurayj still made mulazama, sticking to a scholar to learn from him. He still made mulazama with Amr ibn Dinar for 7 years, despite the fact that they were both learning from Ata'u ibn Abi Rabah. So in the past, you will see a very, very learned person sitting down in front of somebody else who is also more learned. And another person will be sitting together with them in that gathering. And everybody knew their places in terms of knowledge. This one happened to with Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi. Al-Imām A'lamuddin al-Birzali. A'lamuddin al-Birzali, Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, and Al-Imam Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. They were always together. Likewise, Al-Imam Jamaluddin al-Mizzi. All these people were together. Likewise, the Imam Taqiyuddin al-Subki. All of these were scholars who existed at the same time. But at the same time, each of them knew his limits with respect to his brother who is with him. So as Alamuddin al-Birzali, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi would be in his company. They would learn from the same teacher. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi also learned from Alamuddin al-Birzali. So Alamuddin al-Birzali spoke about Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. It says, Rajulun Fadilun. The first thing Alamuddin al-Birzali said about Imam Adh-Dhahabi is what? Rajulun Fadilun. Imam Adh-Dhahabi was a honorable person. Oh Salafi, for the sake of Allah. Those you want to be like were very honorable people. You will hardly find any one of the Salafus Salih, except that when he was described, he was a person of what? Honor. So for the sake of Allah, let us preserve our honor in our dealings with people. For the sake of Allah, let's make good efforts to preserve our honor, to maintain good honor when we relate with people. The first thing Al-Birzali spoke about when he mentioned Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, he said, Rajulun Fadilun. He was, Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi was a man of honor, Sahih al-Zihin. The second thing he mentioned about him, he was Sahih al-Zihin. What was that? He had sound intellect, Sahih al-Fahmi. Many times young people read a lot of things, but you find that they don't understand what they have read. Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illa huwa. I have seen a lot of these. People reading, arguing about a matter when the problem was that they have not understood what they read. And they already behaving like the scholars of the Ummah. But when you listen to them and you know the matter they are talking about, you know that yes, they might have read, but they do not understand what they have read. So for Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi, kana sahih al-zihni. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi was a person of what? Sound, straightforward, clear intellect. Rahimahullah. Ishtagala wa rohala wa kataba al-kathir. Ishtagala. He was a very, very busy person with knowledge. Wa rohala. He also traveled. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi made journeys to Egypt. He spent about 4 months. He would have spent more in Egypt, but for his father and mother. Some of the scholars say he was the only child of his mother. That was why his father hardly allowed him to travel out of Damascus, where he grew up. So even when he went to Egypt, his father gave him a condition. By 4 months, he must come back to Damascus. So that was why he only spent 4 months in Egypt. He traveled to other parts of the Muslim world. So Imam Adh-Dhahabi ishtagala. I was going to mention what Dr. Bashar Awad Ma'ruf mentioned about Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi when he wrote his thesis in 1975. He counted 320 something works, some of them 18 volumes, some of them 20 volumes, some of them 4 volumes, some of them 7 volumes, some of them 8 volumes. Each one of them like that, over 300. that Adh-Dhahabi wrote. So when Alamuddin al-Birzali said, رَجُلٌ فَاضِلٌ صَحِيحُ الذِّهْنِ اشْتَغَلَ وَرَحَلَ وَكَتَبَ الْكَثِيرِ, he wrote, he documented a lot in terms of knowledge, meaning Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi documented a lot. He studied a lot, he traveled a lot for knowledge, and he documented a lot of knowledge. So he said, وَلَهُ تَصَانِيفٌ وَاخْتِصَارَاتٌ مُفِيدَةٌ وَلَهُ تَصَانِيفٌ وَاخْتِصَارَاتٌ مُفِيدَةٌ. So Imam Adh-Dhahabi had tasanif, a lot of books that he compiled, waqtisarat, a lot of books that he summarized. He summarized the Tahdhib al-Kamal of Al-Hafiz al-Mizzi in 2 grades. He gave a summary. The book itself occurs in 35 volumes, Tahdhib al-Kamal. He gave a summary in about 10 volumes. He gave another summary in just 2 volumes, Al-Kashif. He gave a summary in 10 volumes. Tahdhib al-Kamal is the original book. The second one I call it Tahdhib of At-Tahdhib. This is a summary of Tahdhib al-Kamal. Then he wrote Al-Kashif. So the entirety of a book in 35 volumes was summarized to another book in 2 volumes by Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi. So he had Mukhtasarat. We would have known Minhaj al-Sunnah by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. My own copy of Minhaj al-Sunnah occurs in 8 volumes. I also have the Mukhtasar of Minhaj al-Sunnah by Imam Adh-Dhahabi in 1 single volume. So he had Mukhtasarat. We know Kitab al-Iman. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah did a sharh of the hadith of Jibreel. بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله اطلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب. This first hadith of Al-Arba'un by Imam An-Nawawi. There's a sharh of it by Ibn Taymiyyah in over 400 pages. Imam Adh-Dhahabi did a summary of that Mukhtasara. So he has Mukhtasarat. Dhahabi has Mukhtasarat. All of these Mukhtasarat were listed in the works of Bashar Awad that I mentioned. So Wallahu Tasanif. Dhahabi had books that he authored, were Mukhtasarat Mufida, and very, very beneficial summaries that he had written. Wallahu Ma'rifatun Bishuyukh al-Qira'at. Wallahu Ma'rifatun Bishuyukh al-Qira'at. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi also had a very good knowledge of the scholars who transmitted the Quran, who taught the Quran, who memorized the Quran, who also perfected the various recitals of the Quran. Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi was well aware of the stories of the biographies of these people who have transmitted the knowledge of Islam from one generation to the other. So we have seen Al-Imam Adh-Dhahabi was a very, very learned person, rahimahullah, and he is the author of the book Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. That book itself, Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, we can tell us just a little bit about it. As we read the book along, inshallah, we'll get to know more about the book, just like we did with Al-Adab al-Mufrad. As we read the book along, we know more about the book. We know more about his approach to documenting facts in the book. Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. What does that mean? Siyar is the plural of the word Seerah. We know Seerah. Many of us in madrasa we learn Seerah. What does Seerah mean? Biography. So if you write As-Seeratun Nabawiyah, that is a biography of who? The Prophet alayhi salatu. So if you say Seerah to Āishah, what do you mean? The biography of Āishah. So in Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, you have the biography of A'lam. The A'lam is the plural of the word Alam. One of the words we use very regularly means Alam in Arabic. And that word is the flag. Arabs refer to a flag as what? Alam. What do flags represent? Flags represent, they affirm the authority of a state. So if you refer that to human beings, that they are A'alām, which is the plural of Alam, you are talking about Sayyidul Qawm. These people are the leaders of the people. Just like the flag shows who to follow. If you're in a battle and the flag is going, you follow the person bearing the flag, isn't it? You follow the flag bearer. Every person coming behind follows the flag bearer. So the flag bearers of this deen, the eminent scholars of this deen, these are our A'lam. So he now only did not compute and gather the names of the scholars of hadith. In Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, you'll find the scholars of Quran, you'll find the scholars of Tafsir. You'll find the scholars of it's like the history of Islam from the first day of Islam up to about 720 years, up to his own time. Adh-Dhahabi rahimahullah compiled the biography of the scholars from the first day of Islam. So you see, it has the biography of Abu Bakr and Siddiq, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. And all of this, Islam, and it started from the first day of Islam. Al-Dhahabi also has a separate book he called Akhbaru Āishah. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, he has a separate book he had called Akhbaru Āishah. But this book, the scholars say it is what? Mafqud. The book is missing in history. He had a book he had written about Āishah. But this book is what? Mafqud. It is missing in history. So we make do with what we have inside Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. So Siyar is the plural of Seerah. Sinun, Ya'un, Ra'un. The sin has a kasra. The Ya'un has a fatha. Like that. So it is Siyar. And this book has the biographies of A'lam, the leaders of the Muslim community and their heads. An-Nubala, these leaders and their heads, they were honorable people of esteem. So it's like saying Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, a compilation of the biographies of our eminent leading scholars of Islam, the compilation of the eminent leading scholars of Islam. That is the meaning of that expression, Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. And one of them is our mother, Āishah radiallahu anha, that we shall be reading about. We are at the dot of the hour at this time. And by my nature, I don't like these classes to exceed the 1 hour that we have stipulated for them. So bi'idhnillah, we will stop here. If we have a few questions that we like to ask about from what we have discussed today, please, we'll be willing to accept those questions. But the class today was about why are we studying about Āishah radiallahu anha. And what does it mean if we say Siyar A'alām An-Nubala? What does it mean? Who is Imām Adh-Dhahabi? Who was he? We said a bit about him. His name was Muhammad. His father's name was what? Ahmad. His grandfather's name was what? Uthman. So why was he called Adh-Dhahabi? We mentioned why he was called Adh-Dhahabi. That was a job of his father, which was his own job too at the beginning of his life. Adh-Dhahabi became popular too as Al-Dhahabi, even though he used to be referred to as what? Ibn al-Dhahabi. So if you say Al-Dhahabi, Ibn al-Dhahabi, you have not made a mistake. He was a scholar of Qira'at, he was a scholar of Hadith, he was a scholar of Islamic history. He was so knowledgeable such that the likes of Ibn Hajar drank Ma'uz Zamzam, praying that they be like who? Al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, Ibn al-Dhahabi. This was a person who compiled the biographies of the scholars of Islam in a book called what? Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. And it is from this book we have chosen to read about the Seerah of who? Āishah, radiyallahu anha. And it is our intention to read from this book word for word, kalima with kalima, word for word. So we all should be ready, should be prepared with our pens. I suggest to us that we should print out the copies of this book so that we make notes, we take notes, inshallah. We make it as simple as possible in our explanations of what we will come across in this book, inshallah. We'll come across the life of Āishah, how she grew up, how she got married, who was her father, who was her mother, and all of these. We hope that our women will take these kinds of women as their models. These are the models that Allah has selected for us as Muslims. So we'd like to stop here, inshallah. If there are a few questions that we can attend to, inshallah, we attend to them and hope to meet in class, inshallah, next week, Friday, so that we commence the actual reading from Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. We know what it means if we say Siyar. We know what it means if we say A'alām. We know what it means if we say An-Nubala. And we know what it means when we say who it is when we say Imām Adh-Dhahabi. He is the author of the book Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. I think we can stop here, Abu Amir.
جزاكم الله خيرا يا شيخنا.
آمين أبا عبد الرحمن.
أحسن الله إليكم.
آمين وإياك.
There's a question here.
نعم.
The questioner says, جزاكم الله خيرا شيخ.
آمين.
What dua can I always make for Allah to make me and my children knowledgeable?
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has told us what to say. That hadith occurs in Sunan Abi Dawud. He used to command the companions to say it. In fact, on one occasion, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it on the minbar, encouraging on the day of Friday, encouraging the Muslims to say this dua. What is it? Allahumma allimni ma yanfa'uni. Allahumma allimni ma yanfa'uni. Oh Allah, teach me what will benefit me. Oh Allah, teach me what will benefit me. Wanfa'ni bima 'allamtani. And grant me benefits with the ones that you have already taught me. Wazidni ilma. Grow me, make me become more knowledgeable. Increase me in knowledge. Just three expressions. Allahumma allimni ma yanfa'uni wanfa'ni bima 'allamtani wazidni ilma. Allahumma allimni ma yanfa'uni. Oh Allah, teach me what will benefit me. Wanfa'ni bima 'allamtani. Grant me benefit from the ones you have already taught me. Wazidni ilma. Increase me in knowledge. This dua occurs in Sunan Abi Dawud. But aside dua, O questioner, good effort is also required to make us and our children people of knowledge. Apart from dua, focus, make good efforts to be sure that our children are knowledgeable from very early age. Expose them to learning the Quran from very early age. Expose them to learning the Quran and learning Arabic language from a very early age. Expose your children to learn the Quran and learn Arabic language. These were two things that Imām Adh-Dhahabi paid attention to. As at 18, he had perfected all the qira'at. At 18 also, he had learnt the biggest book of Nahu at that time. Like the biggest book we pay attention to now is the Alfiya of Ibn Malik. The equivalent of it, Imām Adh-Dhahabi already studied that book at that time by age 18. So three things. At the very early age, make them pay attention to Quran. Make them pay attention to Arabic language at a very early age. It is very, very important. These two things are the key to scholarship as far as Islam is concerned. Quran and what? Arabic language. Then these days also, make the children pay attention to memorizing and studying the books of Aqidah. The books of Aqidah. Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Make them memorize it. Make them read it. Make them learn it. So the head and the thing that will control these three things is that you make them have a person of Sunnah who will teach them. Look for a good person of Sunnah who will teach them these three things. The person of Sunnah will teach them Aqidah. The person of Sunnah will teach them Quran. The person of Arabic things are key. So by the time they become 11, 12, they already have the foundations of these three things. By 11, 12. And by the time they get to 18 years old, they already learn the major sciences as far as these three things are concerned. Aqidah, Qira'ah, and what? Al-Lugha. This is very important. Learning Aqidah, learning the Quran, and learning what? Al-Lugha. These three things are very, very important. Children must get it before 18. They must have gotten to the inner core of it. When Imām Adh-Dhahabi went to this, he came to learn, but he was teaching people Qira'at. Because when he got there, he saw that I'm already a scholar. That was what he discovered. He came to learn some things, and he was able to teach some things. So when the foundation is solid, the child is able to grab the key by himself and open the doors. When he meets scholars, he's able to make a lot of benefits from them. If you do all this in addition to dua, then that's good. But if we are just making dua alone, and we are not making good effort, it's like someone sleeping inside the house saying that Allah should give him money. Yes, this is not the sunnah of Allah. The sunnah of Allah is that as you make dua, He wants you to make efforts towards that dua's attainment. So the dua and the efforts, these are from the sunnah of Allah to make an achievement for anything. You make dua and then you do what? You make efforts. You don't make efforts without what? Dua. Because la yanfa'u dhal jaddi minkal jaddu. The effort of the person making effort does not bring goodness. Just the efforts. No. It is the effort with the help of Allah. So as to seek Allah's help with the dua, we'll be making good efforts as required in the Sharia. I hope that it is clear to us. Making our children knowledgeable is not just about dua, it's also about making good efforts. And I like to say one thing around this. Keep your children away from television if you want them to be very, very great in terms of knowledge. Today, keep them away from televisions, electronic games. Most of these things have become means of distractions. In fact, not just distractions, means of teaching children evil. The evil in these things have overcome any kind of good we want to think about. Televisions and games. For the sake of Allah, let us be careful about these two things with respect to our children. May Allah make our children blessed children for us and forgive our shortcomings. We already took the time, Abu Abdur-Rahman, Abu Abdurrahman.
No, yeah, Shaykh. Another one says, is it true that now?
Ask the question.
Said, is it true that there are some biographies of some non-Muslim in our books? Siyar A'alām An-Nubala?
It is not true. It is not true that there's a biography of a non-Muslim in Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, except if he, rahimahullah, if he was discussing something and he has to mention some of them, maybe because they have a dealing with a non-Muslim, then he narrates an incident with that Muslim and the scholar of Islam and the non-Muslim. He narrates the incidents. He tells us what happens. Otherwise, the well-known scholars of Islam have their biographies in Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. Maybe what the person seeks to say is some of the people have mistakes that they made, because you won't have a scholar except that he has a mistake. Maybe that's what that person means. Maybe that's what that person means. And in most of the cases, one of the things that Imām Adh-Dhahabi is well known for is that if someone did a mistake, he will discuss that mistake. He will say something about it, except in very, very rare cases when he just passes along. If he finds a mistake, he mentions it, rahimahullah, as far as it is clear to him. So, but on the whole, the entirety of the scholars of Islam who came after him, they have mentioned Siyar A'alām An-Nubala as a major book of Islamic history. All the scholars have always depended on Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. And anyone who has actually read the book, not the one who just stands afar and throws the stone. If you have actually read this book and studied it, you will know that La Hijrata Ba'da al-Fath. Imām Adh-Dhahabi has documented for us Islamic history. At least he told us what has happened, rahimahullah, and he depended in all of that on asanid, chains of report. Imām Adh-Dhahabi, in all that he wrote, he depended on chains of report. So that's why the likes of Ibn Kathir, the author of Tafsir, who was his teacher? Ibn Kathir, who was a student of Adh-Dhahabi, praised Adh-Dhahabi. Ibn Kathir, who was the student of Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, the author of Siyar A'alām An-Nubala, he praised Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. So if Ibn Kathir praised Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, what else do we look for? Ibn Kathir, the scholar of Tafsir, he praised Adh-Dhahabi and he praised the works of Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi. He called him Mu'arrikhul Islam. So there is no side talk we should look at. Set all side talks aside, and then we proceed to make benefit from the book Siyar A'alām An-Nubala. We are in a generation where people talk too much, and people who say most of this too much usually don't know much. People talk much, but they know very little. It's one problem in our generation. So those kinds of people want us to leave the statements of Ibn Kathir and follow their own. You can imagine Ibn Kathir, the author of Tafsir, gives a verdict regarding a person. One young boy who just finished graduate from electrical engineering, who read some put together articles on the internet, will tell us something. He wants us to leave what Ibn Kathir said and follow his own. This is from the fitna of our generation. Every person has become a talker. Just be able to say and write something on the internet, and that's all. I think that we should set aside all those distractions and side talks and follow in our reading and proceed upon goodness, inshallah. Abu Abdur-Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum, ya Shaykh.
Ameen, ameen. Can we stop here for today, inshallah? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.